Well, we're back on Clear as Mud, and I'm joined again by my wife, Hannah, and we're really excited about this conversation today. And like we kind of said in the intro episode, we just want to talk about real life stuff. And something real life for us is marriage right now.
It's pretty real.
It's pretty real.
We're living in it every day.
Yeah, almost 4 years married.
Almost.
Mess up every single day, I mean, it feels like. No.
You do.
I do, yeah. I definitely mess up every single day, and I can own that. And I have to ask for forgiveness every single day. But in all honesty, and joking aside, marriage is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun being able to live with your best friend and kind of chat about life and then do life with one another. And then you add kids into it, and it's crazy and it's fun and hectic. And Hannah and I wanted to kind of not quickly chat, but take some time talking about the marriage course that we're in.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on it? Like when we signed up for the marriage course, I was like kind of skeptical, but it's kind of blowing my mind.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't really have high hopes for it. Mind you, it's by like Alpha Canada, and their videos lately have been amazing.
Yeah.
They've been incredible, and their Alpha program is insane. So, I mean, that was like, okay, so maybe it's going to be pretty good. I mean, we've never done a marriage course by any means.
We did premarital counseling, which was okay. It was good.
Yeah.
But we've never done something like this. We're not actually in counseling together, like marriage counseling.
No.
Like we do need to take that step, I think, next to do that. I know you would love that. I've been a little bit hesitant on it. I'll be completely honest, because it always comes down. It always comes down to money for me. Like I'm like, man, we gotta pay. Like it's crazy. But in all honesty, I gotta remember we're investing in our marriage.
Yeah, we got another 60 to 80 years together.
Holy smokes.
We're definitely not perfect. Not that we're ever going to be perfect, but we got to work at it. And
yeah. So
sometimes it helps to have a third party.
Yeah. So we're doing the marriage course right now. And Hannah, like she said, it's on Alpha Canada, and an incredible organization that helps people explore life and faith. And then they also have this marriage course that is helping people discover how to have a healthy, thriving marriage. And we want to go, it's a 7-week program. We're on week 4 or 5, I think.
I think we're at 5.
Or I think we're at 5. Yeah. And when we were talking about the podcast, we're like, okay, we've got to talk about this marriage course because we joke around that we mess up a lot, but we do claim that we have a pretty healthy marriage, the two of us.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Like we fight for one another. We love one another. We try to forgive one another as best as we can. And this marriage course has really taught us some things. And we want to talk about strengthening connection today. And there's 4 analogies that the marriage course on Alpha talks about. And the 4 analogies are adjusting, pruning, supporting, and renewing. And when we opened this up in the first week, it was like, in all honesty, when I was sitting down with you watching, like the butterflies came in again of like falling in love with you, discovering, it was hilarious. But it was really truly amazing because I was like, man, like I'm taking time to date my wife again and continue to date her.
Something we've been trying to do for a while.
Yeah, and COVID we can give excuses all we want, but COVID kind of dampened that right when we had tea.
But we're doing it now.
But we're doing it right now.
We did the first 4 weeks of Alpha throughout lockdown.
Yeah, and it's been incredible.
Yeah.
It really has. But we want to take some time to talk about these 4 analogies of making and bringing your marriage together by strengthening the connection. So the first one was adjusting, where it kind of really brought us together in understanding that we're bringing 2 families together and we're trying to find a middle ground of creating our own family.
Yeah.
And like you and I have talked about this
at length.
What's your thoughts around this, like adjusting when you first get married or when you are married for years and years and years and you're like, holy smokes, we brought 2 families together?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty huge. You don't really realize it until you're in the day-to-day life and swinging through things. But we all have things that our parents are both wonderful. Both sets of parents are great, but you all have things that you agree with and things that you don't necessarily agree with. And then you also have patterns that you don't really think about and they're just habit. So sometimes when you're going through a life, they collide. Like my pattern of upbringing and your pattern of upbringing. I think even just simply like the way we fought in the beginning was the total opposite. Like you wanted to hash it out right there, right then.
Because that's how I was brought up.
That just made me shut down.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of fights that you fought and I didn't.
you just hid. But I didn't understand that right off the hop. Like I wasn't willing to adjust at that moment. Like I was just like, so like, this is how I was raised. Like we deal with it now. We deal with it here and then. Like we don't want to hold a grudge on each other. But
it was two-sided. I mean, I needed to learn to identify my emotions and how I felt and then to relay them to you.
Yeah.
Which I didn't have practice doing. So that was something that I also had to learn. You had to step back a bit and I needed to step up.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. Like
if we did this marriage course our first year, it would have been a hot mess.
It would have been a hot mess. But I think it would have helped us realize a little bit quicker on how to adjust.
Maybe, but I feel like we also just had really good older couple friends who kind of spoke into our lives and that really helped us along the way.
Yeah, I love what one of the quotes was in the Alpha Marriage course was that we can change ourselves, we can't change our partner. And that really hit me. I was like, man, oh man, like for how long was I when we first got married trying to change you to like kind of cater to how I lived my life? Like, because we didn't live together before. We dated for a short time. Christian couples get married pretty quick sometimes. And we were one of those couples that got married pretty quick while dating. And I thought about this when they said that, like, you can't change your partner. You can only change yourself. And when I was thinking about, okay, we bring two families together, opposites, really, our families are opposites.
Totally.
Like, they really are.
Absolutely.
Both are incredible. I love how we say that. Like, both are incredible. Like, we have to, like, fight for
just
our
in
families.
case they're listening. You guys are great.
Yeah, they're awesome, right? And shout out to mom and dad and shout out to Ken and Sylvia.
Yeah.
And but it's interesting, right? When you bring these families together and you think about this quote of I can change myself, I can't change my partner. I think that really relieves some pressure off in learning the adjustment of marriage. I think it allows like me to be like, oh, okay, I don't have to change Hannah, but I can change myself to make this marriage adjust well and find our like our happy medium of how our family is going to operate and how we're going to live.
And like the cheesy quote is like it's not really a quote, I guess, but when you get into marriage and you start fighting, it's called marriage problems. But as we've just discussed, we come from two completely separate families. And when we come together, those aren't marriage problems. Those are separate problems that are now brought into a marriage.
Yeah.
So that comes back to where you're saying you can work on you and I can work on me so that we can come together in more of a unison form. Yeah.
I really loved this conversation around adjusting. I think... And we, like you kind of mentioned already, and we can get down to this in support of a marriage where we had people kind of just speak into our lives about how you have to adjust, you have to adapt as a couple. Like it's not going to be a quick fix. It's going to be a constant moving forward and fighting for one another and adjusting together. So yeah.
Well, and that's the beauty of marriage. Like, people say years and years later that they fell out of love because the other person changed, but we're always changing all the time. And that's why it's so important to keep dating while you're married because you're still getting to know the person because they're always changing.
I love when someone says, they're like, hey man, like you haven't changed at all or don't ever change. And I'm like, no, like I want to keep changing. Like, and I take that into my marriage. Like I want our marriage to constantly adjust. Like this first analogy of strengthening a connection within marriage is you got to constantly adjust. Like, because you're constantly either you're moving from job to job or you're moving from a location to a location. You're adding kids into your family. That's adjusting. Like if you stay the same, like it's going to be very, very difficult to make that marriage work. It's going to be very, very difficult to make that marriage thrive, I think. Yeah. You agree with me?
I totally agree with you. Okay, stop that. That's enough. No, but like, I get what you're trying to say. Like, as life progresses, things happen and you change, you morphs, like, just like technology and social media changes, we change along with it. So yeah, even as you're saying, like, it's important coming into marriage to adjust. It's important to understand that you're always going to be adjusting. Like, you are not exactly who I married 4 years ago. But I hope I'm a better version of that, though. You know what I mean? Maybe we should change the word change. It's progression.
Yeah.
We're progressing through evolve, whatever. But it's true. Like, it's not for the bad. We're all growing in different ways. So.
Yeah. That's cool. I really like this conversation around adjusting. Like, it takes two people to tango in this area of calling each other out and being like, okay, we need to adjust. Like, we need to reconvene and think about, like, we need to refresh. Like, how are we moving forward? How are we adjusting our marriage so we can keep growing as individuals? But as that individual, we grow together as well. So I love Absolutely. That. The second one was pruning for this conversation. Like, pruning was tough for me because... Get
into what pruning is.
Yeah, I'm going to, I think.
Oh, okay.
I think so, I will.
You think
Or are we
will?
Just going to drive by?
Okay.
We just drive by. On number 3, supporting.
You're
I'm just
sassy.
Kidding. I'm just kidding. Pruning. So how Alpha, the marriage course, kind of helped us understand what pruning is inside your marriage is like when life gets busy, the big win is saying no to things and prioritizing one another. So you prune back the things that might be getting in the way. Like, maybe you got 6 hobbies instead of 1 hobby, but really you should have 1 hobby, not 6 of them going crazy, where then your wife or your husband or your spouse is just like off in the distance and you don't prioritize one another. So this pruning was not like cutting back on things. It was cutting back on things that were getting in the way of each other. And I thought that was cool. But when I say cool, that was tough for me. Because in all honesty, as she smiles at me, if you're watching the YouTube version, you see that she's smiling at me. This one was tough because I love my job so much that I will say yes to the church and church, like the mission of the church, of people, other people outside of our family. I'll prioritize that so much and see that as like work. And I get so filled up by that I would actually make my calendar so full. And I wouldn't say full because full is when you say yes to the proper things in your life. I made it so busy where I wasn't prioritizing you. That was before.
I wouldn't say it wasn't just work too.
Yeah, that's true.
You're very much, you have a passion, you have a drive for something, you just go do it.
Yeah.
You're not going to hum and haw about it.
Like, I get consumed by it.
You do. It becomes like your obsession. I mean, you got
have a problem.
How many podcasts going right now?
Just 1.
No.
Just kidding, 2.
2. I count the church podcast as well. That takes up time.
Yeah. I do have a lot going on, but it's a lot of stuff. When I learned this a little while ago, for pruning and prioritizing you, and I'm still learning this. Like, you will be honest with me. Like, this is what I love about you. You'll be like I don't feel valued right now. And you're like, I love this. I think at the beginning of our marriage, you probably wouldn't have stood up right away and said that.
I would say something like, I miss you.
Yeah. And I would just be like, I miss you too.
I feel like I don't know you right now.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, what? We see each other every day. Even if it's like making breakfast, being like, yeah, our day was great. Cool. And we move on. Yeah.
But this pruning in the last little while, and then talking about in the marriage course, it really helped me learn that if this is going to thrive, our marriage, I need to say no to things where I can get at least 2 nights a week with you and I, at least. If more, that's great. But if not, like, at least get 2 nights, at least 1 date night and 1 just lazy night, just hanging out or recording a podcast now.
That's tonight.
But that's fun.
True.
That's fun.
It is fun.
So yeah, pruning, like, what's your thoughts on it? Like, what's your, like,
I mean, my perspective, but this is just also our personality, is you more had to do pruning and I had to do more of the asking. I wasn't always the one to initiate it. I classically was just like, you should just know how I feel and that I want to spend more time with you. Like, why doesn't he get that? But I needed to know to ask and to, I think we've both gotten really good. Like, if we're going to make a plan, it's going in the calendar.
We are so quick calendar oriented now.
Oh yeah. Even with friends, it's like, if you want to hang out with us, send us a couple dates and then it'll go in the calendar.
Yeah.
Like
if you want
it's
to
not
hang
in
out
the
with us,
calendar,
we're
it's not gonna
booking into
happen.
September right now.
Okay.
I'm
We're not
just-
that popular.
I'm just kidding. It feels like it sometimes. We're booking into September.
Yeah.
But
Sometimes.
yeah, it's interesting, the different aspects of pruning. From my side, it was like, I really need to slow down. So like that pruning aspect for me was making sure that our Sabbath was our Sabbath. So Friday night to Saturday night is strictly family. And sometimes we say yes to friends because that fills us up with joy and stuff like that. And we actually connect really well when we're with friends. But when we practiced Sabbath and made that a weekly rhythm,
It's been the best.
I feel like our marriage has been just way better.
Absolutely.
It gives us time to be with one another, hear one another. We're not on our phones very much on Sabbath. Like we started off our Sabbath with like strictly saying no to social media and phones.
I think we needed that cut though.
Yeah, we did that for that.
We're more
like,
slack now,
yeah.
but I think we both mentally know like this is our time. Like
But this is kind of like now part of our rhythm, right? Like our Sabbath is part of our rhythm. So we have our phones on, but it's not like at our beck and call, like we need to be on our phone. Like, oh, we hear a ding. Like I turn my notifications off on Sabbath. If I go to my phone, I see it. But this pruning aspect of just saying no for a full 24 hours to be with you is just so great.
that's the best.
It is really good.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this and if you can make Sabbath a daily routine, a weekly routine, it's like, I think even for people that are dating, I think to get into that rhythm before marriage, it would make a huge impact on marriage starting off. Pruning those things back and just prioritizing one another. Like you hear people say it all the time. There's so many outside pressures like family, friends, finances, social events, all of that kind of stuff. But if you can just learn how to say, no, I'm just going to stay home tonight. Like we're just going to hang out. We're going to prune some things back. I think going into marriage and relationships that way would just like, it would impact it so well.
I think just in this past year, a lot of people maybe learned that and didn't know because we were all forced to shut down a lot more. And I've talked to a lot of people recently being like, I didn't know I could give up so much of my work and be still so happy and feel like I wasn't as happy before.
Wow. Yeah.
Even one of the ladies I work with, like she's just like, I got asked to take on, she's like a consultant. She's like, I got asked to take on another greenhouse, but it's like a greenhouse of like 5 locations. And she was just like, that would put me back to where I was before COVID. She's like, I don't think I want that.
Wow. So she learned how to say no. That's cool. So imagine that even just within relationships of just understanding when to say no.
Yeah.
That's just so great. That's awesome. Any thoughts on pruning? Any else? Or
I don't think so. I feel like we've hit some good points.
Yeah. The third one is huge within marriage. Like I think our marriage is it's where it's at because of this one. Number 3 is support.
Absolutely.
Supporting our marriage. Like when we think about marriage, like and being together, like we're built for community, right? Like I'm actually studying on this right now for a message that I'm teaching at Vital Point Church, community and friendship and companionship. And the depth of where we're wired at to be in community, yeah, in marriage, like it's a little community, it's a 2-person community, it's a friendship, it's a relationship. But when you bring people into your life, the people that support you, speak into your life, love you so much where they can see past like the BS or the moments that you're living in and speak to that moment and support and be the voice of reason. I think, wow. Like it's so helpful in a young marriage and even in an older marriage.
It's always important to have people around you to check in, people who are at your stage and then people who are also farther down the line.
So you're thinking like having like different stages of friends, like being in your like little circle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like all friends your own age are not useless, but like
No, they're not useless
you're
at
all
all.
going through the exact same things. Mostly, some of you don't have kids yet. Some of you are just getting married. But I think it's nice to have some couples down the road that are like 10, 15 years down the road. And they've seen a lot more life. They've lived a lot more of their marriage. And And I just think it's really good to be able to sit down with them and just kind of talk about life and see what they suggest, what they support. I mean, we both know there was one specific couple who helped us a lot in that first month.
Yeah, Mike and Megan Flute.
Yeah, they're unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal people if you know them.
Yeah, they were people that just taught us, it was mainly finances, what they helped us teach us about how to fight well with finances. Not fight well, but like discuss and really understand that finances don't have to be the biggest tension in your marriage. Because for me, I'm someone that like holds so tightly to money in a way where it cripples me. I can spend it, but it cripples me in ways of how I hold on to it. Like, oh, I don't have enough, or wow, like debt's a little too high, or all that kind of stuff. And Mike and Meg, we call them the Flutes. The Flutes, because that's their last name.
They're a fleet.
They're a fleet of flutes. They got the fleet of flutes. It's like a hockey team, the fleet of flutes. And yeah, they really just helped us understand that these things in marriage don't have to be blown up all the time. Like, not every conversation has to be a blow up conversation when it comes to tension.
Well, and for that specific example, they kind of pulled it aside, being like, what is your stressor? What is my stressor? What are your strengths and weaknesses, and what are mine? And how can we divide and conquer based on whose strengths can take what and who can't take something? And
what's interesting to me when you have support and people in your life, and you may be listening to this and you're like, wow, I got some really good people in my life that like care for me and love for me and speak into my life and maybe pray over me too. Hannah and I are people of faith. We're Christ followers, and we really believe that having people pray over you and pray with you is an essential part to living life to the full and understanding that you don't have to do it alone. But when I think of the support, it helped me notice that challenges have the potential to bring us closer. Like when we were talking to Mike and Meg, and we talked to my parents and your parents, when we talk to people that care about us and speak into our lives, like I noticed that these challenges of stressors have the potential to just bring us even closer. Like I remember the first time fighting with you at the climbing gym. I know we talk about this all the time. And
it was such a stupid fight.
It was a stupid fight. It was you wanted to go to a movie with a friend, and I was like, no, he's a dude. You can't go. You can't go because I'm not there. And I was like super protective, and I was like making sure that she wasn't like cheating on me or hanging out with another dude. But she was like completely honest. She's like, she worked with the guy. She's like, hey, I'm going to go to a movie with this guy. And we literally in the middle of the gym had this massive fight. Like I ignored you. Like I just gave
you walked out and I followed you out.
I gave you the cold shoulder. We had some choice words for each other in public, and then I left.
Yeah.
And then you followed me out, and we hashed it out in the parking lot, I think.
Yep.
Or in the car or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But after that fight and we like figured it out together, I was like, man, I'm so much more in love with her. Because I was like, I found this moment where it's like, okay, a challenge rose up between the two of us. And now what we're learning is don't allow challenges and fights to get in between us, get them in front of us so we work together at it.
Look at the fight in front of you.
In front of us, not between us, because that can create massive, even more tension. And when we fought about this stupid argument of should you go to a movie with this guy, which you ended up not going.
No, I was just too single at the time. Like in the sense, like we were dating.
We were dating.
I was just so in my head, like, no, it's just me. I can live my life.
Yeah.
And like, didn't really think about the fact that you were there.
Yeah.
You know,
people
get it. Yeah. You're just so single for so long, and then
you say yes. You go to parties, you hang out with people, you say yes. But in this moment when we were like fighting and hashing it out, and I think we did a good job of discussing this as a couple that were dating at the time. But then when we figured it out and you understood me and I understood you,
I was terrified.
Were you terrified?
Yeah, because you're very passionate is the word you like to use.
I'm passionate, not angry.
I hate all forms of conflict. So you might have left that conversation like, wow, I'm so much more in love with her. And I was just like, that was a lot.
And I'm like,
I was definitely overwhelmed.
You left the car and I was like, I can't wait to marry her.
Shut up.
I told my brother, I told my buddy Sam down in Colorado, I'm like, yo, we had a big fight. I told my buddy Nate Weeb out in BC, I said, like, I'm going to marry this girl. 100% I did.
We weren't even dating for that long. That was like a couple weeks in.
Yeah. And you had already said I love you anyways. So
Okay, well, that slipped out.
yeah,
that was
you
just
meant
ridiculous.
it though. It was great.
Oh, stop.
But within this, the number 3 of supporting one, like having people support you, helping these people speaking into our marriage, into our relationship, helping us understand that these bring us closer together, just allowed me to see that I don't want anything to ever divide us. Mm-hmm. And then in this marriage course, talking about the support and having the fight or the argument or something in front of us, not between us, so we can work together in front of us, that was huge.
Mm-hmm. We're both huge on mental images, metaphors.
Yeah, images, all that stuff. If we can see it.
If you can teach me in picture, I'll get it a lot faster.
My teachers would have done so much better with me in high school and all those schoolings if they just had picture books the whole time. I would have crushed it. I would have crushed it. I would have crushed it. Moving on though. Yeah. Supporting was good. And then the last one of our first creating a stronger connection was renewing. Mm-hmm. This one is really fantastic. It's talking about dreams as individuals, but also talking with one another about how do we see, like, what's our dreams and hopes as a couple, saying no to certain things so we can have more time with one another. That's part of the pruning aspect. Mm-hmm. And then starting something new, it's suggested. Starting something like creating new hobbies with one another. Like,
yeah, that's something we've lost recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't want to blame COVID like crazy, but we really did, like, lockdown happened. We had tea, all that kind of stuff. And it went into like, oh, we're just chilling. And we allowed, like, we do say, like, when we had tea, like, our marriage got stronger because we were talking, like, constantly about how are we feeling? How are you mentally? Are you tired? Or, like, how's your heart?
We very much tag teamed it.
Yeah.
We were very comfortable just to tap each other out when we were just like, I've had enough of this.
But we didn't spend a lot of time sharing our hopes and dreams during that time.
No.
It was like, maybe I did, like, I kind of just went off and did my own thing, and you did your own thing with tea. Mm-hmm. But we still parented together and we were married, but we didn't share a lot of dreams and hopes for as individuals. And we also didn't, like, dream a ton as a couple.
That could be a whole other podcast.
And it really can.
I'm trying to stay on topic in my mind right now.
But, like, what's your thought on, like, renewing a relationship together? Like,
hobbies together, like you said, is probably the most important thing. I mean, when we first started dating, it was rock climbing. We did it all the time. And I think mostly because we moved out here and there's nothing super close.
We moved out to Exeter, Ontario, for people that are just starting
London.
to listen.
Yeah. I mean, that's also an excuse. We could have learned to drive, but we also, I mean, I guess we had the hope and dream moving out here that we wanted to start our family. We were launching a church together. So there were some shared things, but an activity that was just ours is something that I know that we were lacking, and something that honestly started our relationship. And I think now, honestly, this podcast might be that thing that kind of brings us together, and something we get to do and share together.
I think it's really cool thinking about this podcast. This is something new that we're going to dream about, we're going to talk about, we're going to study for some things. It'll bring us together in a way that maybe we've never been brought together before. So, like, I'm excited about people watching online for the YouTube version or the audio version of the podcast. I'm really stoked. Like, we're really excited about chatting about these things, renewing our marriage, making sure it's constantly growing, supporting one another, allowing people to support us, pruning back on things so we can get tight knit together of community that you and I need, and constantly adjusting, constantly growing with one another. So
I'm excited to hear what people want us to talk about.
Ooh.
Because I don't want to just come on here and be like, this is what you need to hear. I want to be like, what do you want to hear about?
Yeah, because we're not the pros.
About it.
We want to talk about things that are just like in the moment. What's your thoughts on all of these kinds of cultural moment things within relationships, single people, all kinds of stuff. I'm really excited. This has been a really good conversation.
I hope so. I hope everybody
Did you have fun
agrees.
with me?
I did have fun. I like how you led the conversation. We talked about this before.
Yeah, there was a lot of planning behind all of this.
Yeah, well, you've done podcasting a lot more than I have.
Yeah, I just have so much fun having conversations with people, especially with you now. Yeah. We're going to get all lovey-dovey now, so we're going to stop now. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening to Clear as Mud. It's been Hannah and David, and we're so excited that you're along for the journey. Have a good one.
See you next time.